Watch this. He walks like a broken puppet. Yusuf jerked his body in exaggerated limps as neighbors snickered. Adel keeps sweeping, his broom scraping concrete like a metronome. The apartment building in Cairo's Hadaic district had been condemned twice. Its residents stayed, some from poverty, others from pride. Yusuf, a failed mechanic, masked his shame by tormenting Adel, the disabled janitor. But the building had its own justice. And tonight, the cracks would collect their debt. Wait, before I tell you what happened next. If you think your mother is an angel, hit that like button and subscribe right now. Yusuf stood in the dusty courtyard, a circle of neighbors watching. He lifted his leg high, then dragged the other foot, mimicking the janitor. Look at him, like a beetle on its back. Laughter rippled through the small crowd. A boy, maybe 7, copied Yusuf's limp, giggling. Adel, the janitor, swept near the entrance, his back to them. He didn't look up. His hands tightened on the broom handle, knuckles white. The scraping sound of the broom on concrete seemed to grow louder. Yusuf pointed. See? Can't even sweep straight. Probably needs a ramp for his broom. More louder. A woman near the back muttered something. Yusuf spun around. What was that, Ahmed? You sticking up for the cripple? The woman held up her hands. Nothing, Yusuf. Just leave him be, Yusuf sneered. Leave him be? Why? He's entertainment. Cheaper than the cinema. He turned back to Adel, who still hadn't moved from his sweeping. Hey, Adel. Need help getting up those 2 steps to your shack? Yusuf took 2 exaggeratedly slow steps, pretending to struggle. Adel stopped sweeping. He leaned on the broom, his head still down. He didn't speak. Yusuf laughed louder. See? Can't even answer. Probably takes him 10 minutes to form a sentence. High above them, on the facade of the building where Yusuf lived, a thin crack spiderwebbed across the wall, unnoticed by the laughing crowd. Yusuf's wife grabbed his arm as he walked into their apartment. She pulled him further inside, away from the open door. Yusuf, stop it. He shrugged her off. Stop what? Stop what? Having a little fun? She closed the door with a soft click, humiliating that man. It's not fun. It's cruel. Yusuf threw his keys onto a small table. Cruel? He's a cripple. What's he got to lose? His wife stepped closer, her voice low but firm. You don't know anything about him. His legs, death, they were crushed, saving children from a fire years ago. At the Al-Nur orphanage, Yusuf stopped smiling. He stared at her. A fire? A fire? Saving kids? Yes, she said. He's not just a cripple. He's a hero? Yusuf scoffed, turning away. Hero or not, he still walks like that. Still a joke to everyone. His wife walked to the small kitchen counter, picked up a heavy clay pot and placed it down hard. The clang echoed in the small apartment. One day, Yusuf, she said, her voice trembling slightly, your mouth will bury you. They sat at their small table, eating dinner. Yusuf chewed loudly. His wife picked at her food. A small puff of dust fell from the ceiling onto Yusuf's plate. He brushed it off. This place is falling apart. His wife looked up at the ceiling. A thin line of plastered dust traced the path of a crack that ran across the ceiling above their table. Yusuf, look at that crack. It's worse than yesterday. He glanced up and went back to eating. It's fine. Old buildings settle. Settle? It's splitting open. You need to call the landlord. Tell him it's dangerous. Yusuf waved his hand dismissively. The landlord won't do anything. This dump stood 50 years. It'll outlast us all. Probably outlast that cripple too. He chuckled to himself. His wife put her fork down. How can you joke about this? Or about him? Because I can, Yusuf said. He leaned back in his chair, looking up at the ceiling crack. It seemed wider now in the dim light. He didn't care. He was safe inside. What did a few cracks matter? Yusuf lay on his back in bed, scrolling through his phone. His wife was asleep beside him. The apartment was silent except for the hum of a worn-out fan. Suddenly, a deep, tearing sound ripped through the quiet. It was loud, like thunder right above them, but sharper, closer. Yusuf's eyes shot open. Plaster dust rained down, thick and choking. The sound intensified. Wood splintering, concrete grinding, a terrifying roar. He tried to sit up, but something heavy slammed down onto his chest, pinning him to the mattress. More debris crashed around him. The air filled with dust, making it impossible to breathe. Darkness. The sound of the building collapsing all around him was deafening, then muffled by the weight pressing down. He couldn't move. He couldn't see. He could only feel the crushing weight and the dust filling his lungs. He opened his mouth to scream, but only a choked gasp came out. He was trapped. A beam groaned overhead. Adel shoved Yusuf hard to the side. Yusuf rolled away as wood crashed down where his head had been. Dust filled the air. Adel coughed, dragging himself closer through the debris. His breath hitched. He reached Yusuf, grabbing the edge of the heavy beam, pinning him. Can't move, Yusuf gasped, dust thick in his throat. Adel strained, pulling the beam. It shifted slightly. He pulled again, grunting with effort. Why? Help me, Yusuf whispered, barely audible. Adel didn't answer. He just pulled. The beam scraped against concrete. concrete. Slowly, it lifted just enough. Now, Adel said, his voice flat, strained. Yusef twisted, scrambling out from under the weight. He fell onto loose rubble beside Adel, coughing. Adel let the beam fall back into place with a thud. He sat in the dust, breathing heavily. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Paramedics arrived, shouting instructions. They found Yusef first, checking him over. Over here, someone yelled, pointing at Adel. A paramedic started towards Adel, but Adel waved him off. I'm fine. Get him. He pointed at Yusef. Adel began crawling back the way he came, searching the debris near the entrance. He found his prosthetic leg lying twisted on the ground. He sat up, pulling off the damaged attachment and carefully reattaching the leg to his stump. Yusef's wife pushed through the crowd of neighbors gathering outside the collapsed section of the building. She saw Yusef sitting on the ground, covered in dust, talking to a paramedic. Then she saw Adel wiping dust from his face. She ran to him. Adel, you're bleeding, she cried, pointing at his arms. Scrapes and deep red marks crisscrossed his forearms and hands. Adel looked at his arms, as if noticing them for the first time. It's old pain, he said quietly. He stood up, testing the weight on his prosthetic. He looked at Yusef and his wife, then turned and walked slowly away from the wreckage, disappearing into the shadows of the undamaged part of the courtyard. Yusef lay in a hospital bed. A nurse adjusted the IV drip in his arm. He felt sore, bruised, but alive. You're lucky, the nurse said softly, checking the bag. Yusef just nodded. That man? Aw. Adel, the nurse continued, he dug you out himself, before the rescue teams even got here. Yusef looked at her. Why? The nurse paused. He's done it before, at the Al-Nur orphanage fire, years ago. Pulled 7 children out of the burning building. She looked away for a moment. The 8th child he carried out, and Brianna was his own. Yusef stared at the ceiling. The nurse's words echoed his own. He thought of his mocking laughter, his imitation of Adel's limp. He felt a wave of nausea. He turned his head and vomited onto the floor beside the bed. He looked at his hands, the hands that had mimicked Adel's struggle, now trembling. Later, Yusef limped down the hospital corridor, leaning on a borrowed cane. He found Adel's room. Adel was sitting in a chair by the window, looking out. His prosthetic leg leaned against the wall beside him. It looked worn, scratched. Adel? Yusef said, his voice hoarse. Adel turned his head slowly. His face showed no expression. Yusef looked at the prosthetic. Your daughter? He managed to ask. Adel looked at the leg, then pulled his pant leg down further over his knee, covering the top of the prosthetic. Buried with the others, he said, his voice flat, distant. Yusef felt his knees weaken. He gripped the cane tighter. He wanted to speak, to apologize, to explain, but the words wouldn't come. He just stood there, swaying slightly. Adel didn't look at him again. Yusef found Adel sitting on a bench in the courtyard. The next day, he was repairing a child's bicycle, carefully tightening a bolt. Neighbors walked by, greeting Adel warmly. He nodded back before continuing. With everything on the line, what choice would you make? Answer in the comments. Yusef's wife stood in their half-collapsed apartment, packing a small suitcase. Dust covered everything. A section of the ceiling was just gone, open to the sky. I'm leaving, Yusef, she said, not looking at him. He stood in the doorway. Leaving? Where will you go? She turned, holding a framed photograph. It was a picture of their son, smiling, holding a small toy car. To my sisters, I can't stay here. Not anymore. But thanks. What's coming up? I mean, hold on. I have to talk, slowly. Okay, thanks. That's fine. Here's the post. But, slowly, the building. My leg, Yusef stammered. She looked at the photo, her eyes distant. Our son. You know how he died, Yusef? The day of the Al-Nur fire. Yusef flinched. It was an accident. The current was strong. I didn't know. You didn't know because you weren't watching. She cut him off, her voice sharp with pain. She placed the photo on the dusty bed. You were too busy laughing, too busy mocking a man who was trying to save children. She picked up the suitcase. You never looked. Not at him, not at our son, not at the cracks in our lives. She walked past him towards the stairs. The door clicked shut behind her. Yusuf stood in the courtyard. Adele was still working on the bicycle. Children played nearby, their laughter echoing. Yusuf walked towards Adele, the cane clicking on the concrete. "My son," Yusuf started, his voice trembling. "The day of the fire was a month. He was by the river. I didn't see him." Adele stopped working on the bike. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, mud-stained toy car. It was the one from the photo. Yusuf stared at it. Adele looked at the toy car, then back at Yusuf. "I pulled him out," he said softly. "From the river, the current was strong. I was on my way to the orphanage fire. Saw him struggling." Adele held out the toy car. Too late. Yusuf's breath caught in his throat. He stared at the toy car in Adele's hand, then at Adele's face, then back at the car. He saw his son's face, smiling in the photo. He saw Adele's limp, the limp he had mocked. He saw the collapsed building behind him. A sound tore from his chest, a choked, guttural wail that echoed through the courtyard, silencing the children's laughter. Yusuf knelt in the dust, reaching for the toy car. His hands shook. He took it from Adel. Adele stood up. He looked down at Yusuf for a moment. "Keep it," Adel said. "You need the reminder more." Adele turned and walked away, back towards the building entrance. His limp seemed barely noticeable now, a slight unevenness in his stride. Yusuf stayed on his knees, clutching the toy car. He crawled towards the patch of dirt where children sometimes played. He pressed the small, mud-stained car into the soft earth like a grave marker. The distant laughter of children reached him. He heard Adele's voice among them, calm, steady. The wind lifted a swirl of dust around him. The current of the nearby Nile carried the children's voices away, and for the first time, he didn't laugh. Last night, he didn't laugh.